how to clean your JETSURF board after you've used it. Hi, I'm Rui, I'm from JETSURF, and I'm going to run through with you how to clean your JETSURF board after you've used it on the water. So you've been out on the water, you've had a fantastic time, you come in and you're now going to clean your board. First thing to do is we're going to clean the board off completely with nice clean fresh water. So we're going to spray all over with the board, all over the bindings, all over the screws, give it a nice good clean off. Give it a nice good wash underneath, a nice good wash through the propeller, nice good wash around the back, and make sure that it's all nice and clean completely with fresh water. Personally, I tend to spray some fresh water down the snorkel here because that's where a lot of water gets in when you're out riding. Once you've sprayed some water down there, I tend to lift the board up a little bit to allow the water to drain to the back of the board where we've got some drain holes for the water to drain out of. So once you've cleaned the outside of the board, we're then going to clean the inside of the board. So take our engine compartment lid off. Again, don't put that in the sand because that'll be all wet and it'll get covered in sand, and then when you put it back on, it'll be in the engine bay. Cleaning down the engine bay. The main thing we need to make sure here when we're spraying it with nice clean fresh water is that we don't allow water to get into the engine. So we're going to put our hand over the intake to stop the water getting in. We can spray loads of nice clean water in here to get everywhere we can to make sure that there's no salt water or any rubbish water left in the engine bay. So give it a good spray over all the way through, all over the electronics, all over and everywhere that you need to get to. Once you've finished spraying that down, you can take your hand off. There'll be quite a bit of water left in the engine bay. Just make sure there's not too much water that when you take your hand away from the intake, it goes into the engine, because that's bad news. So we've got a load of water in the engine bay, we need to get rid of it. We can start by tilting the board back a little bit to allow it to drain out the back. And we can also engage the electronics with the magnet starter key in the control handle that will initiate the bilge pump. Bilge pump's going to get rid of loads of water, so make sure no one's standing behind you, otherwise they're going to get wet. So once we've got all the water out of the engine bay, out through the bilge pump, we're then going to run the engine up and flush the engine through. So in your JETSURF tool bag, they supply you with a lovely adapter for cleaning your engine out. So this adapter goes onto the end of a normal hose. It clips in the end of the hose. You can either do it like this, or sometimes I find it easier to do it without the hose connected. This is going to go into the back of the board to enable the engine to be cleaned out. This hose fitting goes in the back of the board, and you'll see two stainless exit points for water. This one goes in the self-explanatory, the one pointing towards the front of the board, and just pushes in to the pipe. We then get our hose, clip it on the back, and then when we're ready, we're going to run the water through it when we run the engine. So again, I personally start the engine up for a couple of seconds before we turn the water on. So start the engine, put the magnet in the control handle, allow it to cycle up, and then put it in again to start the engine. Once the engine is started, we can run it just for a couple of seconds without the water and then turn the water on. The water then goes all through the pipe work and into the engine. Make sure the engine is nice and cool. Leave that running for 20 or 30 seconds until the water comes out nice and clean. If it's been in salt water, sometimes you can give it a little taste and see if it's still got salt water in. If it's clear, you know you're good to go. So then what you want to do is stop the water, keep the engine running for a bit, and then turn the engine off. And that is how you run through with getting the engine clean. You can remove the fitting from the back of the engine. That goes back in your tool bag. So we flush the engine on this race board with our adapter at the back. The new cruiser board has the hose fitting already in the back of the board, so you can plug it straight in and flush the engine out. Once you've done the engine, you've got all the water clean in the board, it's best to take the tank out of the board, use a sponge, get rid of whatever water you can in the engine bay, just to make it nice and dry. Sometimes it's best to leave the engine lid off, let the board dry out, and then once it's all completely dry, you can give the engine a good spray with some lubricant and go through your general maintenance after your ride. So that is basically how you clean your engine and your board down after a ride.